After the life-swapping Jade Bracelet was soaked in Black Dog's blood, my half-sister went insane. When I was born, the sky filled with a rosy light. A fortune teller said I was born with the destiny of a queen. My father was overjoyed. Every day, he took a drop of blood from my fingertip as an offering to the gods, claiming it would protect me. 18 years passed in a flash. Today, my half-sister and I were to be married on the same day. I was to marry the second prince as his princess, while she would be the fifth prince's concubine. As we left home, my father placed a blood-red jade bracelet on my wrist and gave my sister a plain one. He told me the bracelet had a calming effect and that I must never, ever take it off. After the wedding, the second prince's mother, the empress, saw me, and then her old illness suddenly flared up. She died without warning. Meanwhile, the fifth prince's mother, Lady, was miraculously cured of a heart condition that even the royal physicians had given up on. I was pregnant for 10 months, but when I gave birth, the child had 3 hands and died the moment it was born. The emperor declared it a terrible omen, placing the second prince and me under house arrest, forbidden to leave without his permission. My half-sister, on the other hand, gave birth to a healthy, chubby royal grandson. The emperor was so pleased he showered her with rewards. I became a jinx, a walking disaster in everyone's eyes. Even the servants in our own home could curse me as they pleased. The second prince hated me for it. The day the fifth prince was named crown prince, he flew into a rage and cut my throat with a single slash of his sword. Only after I died did I learn the truth. The source of all my suffering was that blood-red bracelet. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on my wedding day. Alara, my dear, you're frail and plagued by nightmares. This jade bracelet is a special blessing I sought from the temple to bring you peace. You must wear it always. Never take it off. My father, Frederick, grasped my hand and slid the bracelet onto my wrist. The cold touch snapped me back to reality. Staring at the familiar bracelet, I was filled with disbelief. Didn't I die? In my past life, I was deeply moved and accepted this bracelet, wearing it until the day I died. I never imagined it would be the cause of my life's tragedy. The empress's sudden death, my 3-handed child, the endless scorn and accusations, the searing pain of my throat being sliced open. Remembering it all, I instinctively pulled my hand back. The bracelet nearly fell to the floor, but my father clumsily caught it. Even my half-sister, Serena, rushed over, her face pale with fright. Sister, what are you doing? Father went to great lengths to get this for you. Even though I only got a plain bracelet, I treasure it. You shouldn't be so reckless with father's gift. My father's face soured. Alara, is this how you treat my kindness? I didn't answer, instead studying the man who had pretended to love me for so many years. When I was born, the sky glowed with a rainbow of colors. My father summoned a master fortune teller to interpret the sign. The master said my fate was extraordinary. I was destined for immense wealth and power, the fate of a queen. I was too young to understand my father's reaction then, but my mother later told me he immediately had the master read the fortune of my half-sister, who was still in the womb. No one but my father ever knew what her fortune was. But from that day forward, he took a drop of my blood every day. He said my destiny was so powerful it might turn on me, and the blood offerings were to appease the gods and ensure my safety. All these years, I've been weak and sickly, often bedridden. The daily bloodletting was agonizing. I begged my father to stop, telling him not to put so much faith in destiny. But he wouldn't listen. When I resisted, he used his authority as my father to trap me. I went to great lengths to find a master who could give us this method to protect you. And this is how you repay my efforts? If you refuse to give your blood today, you can stop calling me your father. I had no choice but to give in, and my health only got worse over the years. In my past life, I told myself over and over that he was only doing it for my own good, that I shouldn't disappoint him. No matter how much it hurt, I endured it. Serena is my half-sister, born a month after me. I never cared about the difference between a wife's daughter and a concubine's. As the older sister, I always looked out for her. But these two, they brought me so much misery. Thinking about it now, I was so stupid it's almost funny. I looked down at the bracelet, now almost the color of blood, and I suddenly understood where all my blood had gone over the years. Hiding the hatred in my eyes, I forced a smile. Since you like it so much, Serena, why don't I give it to you? You can give me yours. We're both father's daughters. I'm sure he wouldn't mind. Serena quickly backed away, shooting desperate looks at my father. He got it to bring you peace, sister. It wouldn't work for me. You should be the one to wear it. My father stepped in front of her, scolding me. That's enough nonsense. Put it on properly. Lucy, he ordered my handmaiden, keep an eye on your mistress. If she takes it off, report to me immediately. I glanced at the handmaiden beside me. So there was a spy in my midst. No wonder that in my last life, whenever I tried to take off the bracelet, Lucy would plead with me not to. I knelt to bid my father farewell, then turned and climbed into the bridal carriage. Once I arrived at the prince's residence, I sent Lucy away and had my loyal maid, Autumn, find a craftsman to make an identical copy of the bracelet. With enough money, the new bracelet was delivered quickly. I soaked the real bracelet in dog's blood overnight, then fastened it around a dog's neck. Putting the fake on my wrist, I let out a soft, delighted laugh. What happens when you swap fates with a dog? I couldn't wait to find out. Soon, it was time for our first formal visit to the palace. To say I wasn't nervous would be a lie. In my last life, when I served tea to the Empress, she suddenly clutched her chest, gasping for air. By the time the royal physician arrived, she was gone. If they hadn't found the tea to be poison-free, I wouldn't have survived that day. From the day the Empress died, the second prince's status plummeted. He blamed me for cursing his mother and took all his anger out on me. At home, he would beat and curse me constantly. There wasn't a single spot on my body that wasn't bruised. I ate scraps and was treated worse than a servant. He only left me alone when I became pregnant. But then I gave birth to a three-handed child, which made the emperor despise and punish him even more. My life became unbearable. I was nearly beaten to death several times. Thinking of my past, my hands trembled. This time, I won't let a single person who harmed me get away. We soon arrived at the palace. Serena and the fifth prince were already waiting in the main hall. When she saw me, her eyes immediately darted to my wrist. Seeing the bracelet in place, she visibly relaxed. The emperor gave the usual speech, reminding us to be virtuous wives and to expand the royal family. When it was time to eat, a servant brought out a large roasted pork knuckle. Serena's eyes widened, and she quietly swallowed. She tried to restrain herself, but finally, her face contorted, and she grabbed the pork knuckle, tearing into it like an animal. The sound of her chewing filled the silent hall. The fifth prince's face turned bright red with embarrassment. Serena, what do you think you're doing? Put that down. But she looked crazed, focused only on eating. When she finished what was on her plate, she wasn't satisfied. Before anyone could react, she sprinted toward Lady's seat. Lady screamed in terror, then clutched her chest and collapsed to the floor, struggling to breathe. The fifth prince's face went white. Mother! Physician! Someone get a physician! By the time the doctor arrived, Lady was gone. There was nothing to be done. Only then did Serena seem to wake up, looking around in a daze. The fifth prince, his eyes bloodshot with rage, slapped her hard across the face. You bitch! What was that madness? Serena fell to the ground, her cheek swelling instantly as blood trickled from her lip. She looked at the fifth prince with a hurt and confused expression, but then she heard the commotion around Lady. Her eyes widened in horror. She remembered what she'd done. She scrambled to her feet to run over, but the fifth prince kicked her away. Get away from me. Don't you dare come near my mother. She knelt on the floor, pleading, I don't know what came over me. I didn't mean to frighten Lady. Then she saw me standing nearby and pointed a trembling finger. It was her. It was Alara. She cursed me. Why else would I act like a madwoman? She's the one who killed Lady, not me. I scoffed internally. She'll blame me for anything. On the outside, though, I played the victim. Two can play at that game. I looked at her, my face a mask of confusion, and explained with tears in my eyes, Serena, I know you've been jealous of me since we were children because I'm the legitimate daughter. But you can't just accuse me like this. I had been sitting quietly in my seat the whole time, barely saying a word. There was no way to pin this on me. The fifth prince looked at Serena as if she were insane. I think you've lost your mind. You're spouting nonsense. The emperor's brow furrowed. You are jealous and wicked. I believe Lady's death was your doing. Guards, take her out and beat her to death. Serena was terrified and began bowing her head to the floor. Just as she was about to be dragged away, my father arrived. The first thing he did was check the bracelet on my wrist, only then letting out a breath of relief. He was truly willing to do anything to save Serena, even using the pardon medallion given to our family by the previous emperor. In the end, Serena's life was spared. Her sentence was reduced to 30 lashes for her breach of decorum in the throne room. After everyone had left, my father walked up and slapped me hard across the face. As the elder sister, you can't even protect your own sister. You're useless. He then carefully helped Serena up and led her away. I touched my stinging cheek, a bitter feeling rising in my chest as I uncontrollably remembered my past life. Back then, after the Empress died from drinking my tea, I was in the same situation Serena was in today. When the Emperor asked my father how I should be punished, he just glanced at me coolly. He said quietly, "My daughter has been malicious since she was a child. Today, she has committed a monstrous crime. I have no choice but to disown her for the greater good." I asked the Emperor to have her pay for her crime with her life. I felt like I'd been plunged into an ice cave, shivering from the cold. That was the first time I realized my father didn't love me. Everything before that had been a lie. My own father wanted me dead. Ironically, his words had the opposite effect, reassuring the Emperor and sparing my life. I returned to my residence alone and took the bracelet off the dog to examine it. I originally thought the bracelet could only swap the fates of the two wearers. But seeing Serena's behavior today, so similar to the dog's gnawing, I realized it could also transfer actions and habits. Suddenly, I remembered that in about 2 weeks, both Serena and I would be diagnosed as pregnant. This bracelet was going to be very useful. Autumn, I recall Lady Lee's prized red striped snake is pregnant. This bracelet has a calming effect. Take it to her as a gift. The more I thought about it, the more curious I became, and I couldn't help but let out a snicker. What kind of child would Serena give birth to? One with a snake's head and a human body, or a human head and a snake's tail? Sure enough, 2 weeks later, I was found to be pregnant. This time, everything was normal. The second prince treated me completely differently. He was overjoyed at the news. He even sent for a royal physician from the palace to look after me and showered me with rare gifts. Serena's life, however, was not going so well. Although she was also pregnant, the fifth prince despised her for her earlier transgression. The wounds on her body never had a chance to heal during her pregnancy. She came to my residence every single day, rain or shine. She said it was sisterly concern, but really, she just wanted to see if the bracelet was affecting me. To keep up the act, I made myself look haggard and wore plain, simple clothes. The moment Serena walked in and saw me, her eyes lit up. She limped over to me. "Sister, what's wrong? You don't look well." I was faking it, but Serena's poor condition was obvious. Other women gained weight during pregnancy, but she had become skeletal. Her eyes bulged, and dark circles ringed them. Her belly was unnaturally large and swollen, which looked terrifying. I put on a show and sighed. I don't know what it is. Ever since I got pregnant, I've felt so drained and uncomfortable all over. I heard her mutter to herself in delight, "Good, it's finally working." I mocked myself internally. Her actions were so obvious. Yet in my past life, I never noticed a thing. Just then, the physician arrived to check my pulse, playing along with my act. He felt my wrist and shook his head repeatedly. "Your Highness, the baby is not stable. You must rest and take good care of yourself, or else." Serena couldn't hide her glee. "Sister, don't listen to him," she said dismissively. "I have things to do at my own home, so I'll be leaving." Watching her leave, a smile touched my lips. She's so hopeful now. I wonder how desperate she'll be when the child is born. With less than a month until my due date, Serena's condition worsened. She had to catch her breath after every step. Her visits became less frequent, which was a relief for me. Today, Lady Lee was in high spirits and invited all the royal princesses to see her exotic pets. Serena and I were both on the guest list. Her appearance was so ghastly now that no one wanted to be seen with her, so she latched onto me. Lady Lee led everyone straight to the red-striped snake's cage. "I brought this all the way from the southern kingdom of Nanjiao. Isn't it a beautiful snake? If it hadn't become so agitated after getting pregnant, I wouldn't have locked it up." I caught Serena stiffen out of the corner of my eye. She kept looking from the snake's neck to my hand, her face a mask of confusion. "Oh, that's right." Lady Lee turned to me. "I have to thank the second princess for the calming jade bracelet. It works wonders." Serena looked as if she'd been struck by lightning and nearly lost her balance. Her face contorted with rage as she rushed at me, grabbing my throat. Alara, what is this? How could you put the bracelet on a snake? She was hysterical and surprisingly strong. I could barely breathe. Thankfully, my mates pulled her off me. I gasped for air, tears welling in my eyes as I looked up at her. Serena, the bracelet has a calming effect. I heard Lady Lee's pet has been agitated since becoming pregnant, which was causing her to lose sleep. That's why I gave it to her. I feigned panic as I explained, I haven't forgotten Father's wishes. I'll ask for another one to wear in a few days. Serena's eyes were bloodshot. That's not the same. Father told you to wear it always. All you had to do was obey. Why did you give it to this beast? You're trying to kill me. The word beast made Lady Lee's expression harden. She was from Nanjiao, a place where exotic pets were common, and people raised them like their own children. Lady Lee had married into our kingdom from afar, and these pets were her only comfort. She gave a cold laugh and had a maid retrieve the bracelet. It's just an ordinary bracelet. How could it possibly kill you? Unless there's some secret to it? Could it be the one thing forbidden in the palace, black magic? At her words, everyone's face changed, and they backed away from the bracelet. The current emperor's own mother had been killed by black magic, and he hated it more than anything. He had decreed that anyone caught using such dark arts would be executed immediately. Serena snapped out of her rage and tried to backtrack. No, that's not it. Father told me to watch my sister, and now that the bracelet is gone, he'll surely punish me. She forced a smile. I was just worried. I didn't mean anything else. Lady Lee sneered. You're treating a cheap bracelet like a family heirloom. I've seen every treasure imaginable. You think I care about your little trinket? Take it and get out. She threw the bracelet, and it was about to hit the ground and shatter. Serena's eyes widened. Forgetting she was pregnant, she dove to the floor and caught it. Everyone, including me, stared in shock for a moment. Seeing the bracelet was intact, she finally let out a breath of relief. Just then, the snake in the cage began to thrash wildly, its tail whipping against the bars. After a moment, it curled up quietly on the floor. It looked like it was about to give birth. At the same time, Serena, still on the ground, clutched her stomach and cried out in pain. My stomach hurts so much. I think I'm going into labor. Get a physician. No. Sister, help me up. Here, you take the bracelet, quickly. I almost broke character. Her actions were so blatant, she clearly wasn't afraid of the emperor finding out and having her beheaded. Seeing she was about to collapse, I walked over and let her forcefully put the bracelet on my wrist. Serena gritted her teeth against the pain. Don't you dare take it off, do you hear me? I gave a non-committal nod. Palace servants rushed in and carried her away. Her eyes were still locked on my hand, terrified I would remove it. The third prince's wife, a friend of mine, looked worried. Alara, she whispered, maybe you should take it off. Your sister isn't acting right. I have a bad feeling about that bracelet. I touched the bracelet on my wrist and gave her a reassuring smile. Don't worry, it's fine. When I received Lady Lee's invitation a few days ago, I had a feeling today would go down like this. I had already consulted a Taoist priest I knew. He told me the bracelet was like a curse. The one Serena had was the mother, and the one I wore was the child. The bracelet had absorbed my blood for years. When I wore it, it would drain my good fortune and transfer it to the mother bracelet. Basically, my entire life would be spent taking on Serena's misfortunes and paving her way. The bracelet would also continuously drain my life force, making me weaker and weaker until I died. But that day, when I soaked it in Black Dog's blood thinking it would ward off evil, I had accidentally changed the curse. Instead of draining my good fortune, the child bracelet now transmitted misfortune. So, wearing it now didn't harm me at all. In fact, it protected me. The midwives arrived quickly. The screams from inside grew louder and more desperate, making everyone uncomfortable. Lady Lee frowned. Why is she screaming so horribly? Is she trying to frame me for causing a difficult birth? The other princesses immediately flocked to her side. Of course not. She was the one who spoke rudely first. Your Highness was kind enough to return her bracelet, and she's the one who dropped it. It's no one's fault but her own. Hearing this, Lady Lee's expression softened, and she sat down gracefully. Soon, the cry of a baby was heard, but it wasn't followed by celebration. Instead, there were screams. Ah. A monster. It's a monster. Lady Lee the child, it's horrifying. In all my years as a midwife, I've never seen anything like it. The midwives and servants rushed out of the room, their faces etched with terror. Curious, Lady Lee led a group of us inside. Serena lay weakly on the bed, the baby tossed at her feet. When the group got a closer look, they gasped. The more timid ones collapsed to the floor in fright. What is that thing? How could it look like that? Oh my God, that's terrifying. I can't. I have to get out of here. Several of the ladies linked arms and fled the room. I looked closer. The baby's arms were fused to its body, and its legs were stuck together, making it look exactly like a small snake. The infant wasn't crying. Its little face was blue as it lay on the bed, clearly already dead. Seeing this, I couldn't help but think of my own child in my past life. I had been so careful, and every physician had said the pregnancy was going perfectly. I could never understand why I gave birth to a child with 3 hands. Serena, on the other hand, had eaten whatever she wanted during her pregnancy, especially cold foods like fish and shrimp. I had even warned her that it could be harmful to the baby. She had just shrugged it off. Don't worry. I'm sure my baby will be healthy. It was the bracelet's doing, I realized now. Serena was covered in sweat, lying weakly on the bed. Seeing our reactions, she started to panic. My baby. Let me see my baby. She struggled to crawl toward the infant, her eyes wide with disbelief. How could this happen? This isn't my child. I couldn't have given birth to a monster like this. I kindly went to help her up. Serena, this is your child. We all saw him being born. She shoved me away, her face full of hatred. It's all your fault. This happened because you gave the bracelet to that snake. You did this to me. I feigned confusion. What are you talking about? It's just a normal calming bracelet. Unless, it really does have some kind of dark magic? She just stared at me, not daring to say another word, and soon fainted from weakness. The 5th prince arrived late. He didn't even look at his unconscious wife, but went straight to the baby. When he saw it, his body trembled visibly. He immediately ordered the servants to bury the child. His face was full of venom as he stared at Serena, and ordered his guards to take her back to his residence. Anyone could guess what her life would be like from now on. News of the snake baby spread quickly. Everyone in and out of the palace was talking about it, saying it was a bad omen that would bring disaster. The emperor sealed the 5th prince's residence, forbidding anyone from leaving without his permission. The 5th prince was furious. We often heard him screaming insults and beating Serena. My reputation wasn't much better. People were speculating whether I would give birth to a snake baby too. Was it a problem with the royal family, or with my family? Luckily, not long after, I gave birth to a healthy, chubby son. The rumors died down on their own. The emperor was overjoyed and rewarded me handsomely. The 2nd prince also regained favor, and began to rely on me more, giving me control over most of the household affairs. But I didn't care how he treated me. The pain of being beaten until I couldn't get up, of having my throat cut, how could I ever forget? Serena's life was a living hell, a perfect mirror of my own past life. My father couldn't stand it anymore. He showed up at my door, his face contorted with rage. He raised his hand to slap me, but I wasn't going to let him beat me again. I simply ordered my guards to restrain him. Although you are my father, I am now the 2nd princess. Please recognize your place and do not overstep. He pointed a trembling finger at me, his face turning red with anger. Did you do this to your sister on purpose? Why did you give the bracelet to a snake? I laughed. I didn't just give it to a snake. I gave it to a dog too. Sorry you wasted that pardon medallion. He looked at me in disbelief. You knew what the bracelet did all along. So you deliberately harmed your sister? When did you become so malicious? This is disgusting. Go to the emperor right now and confess that this was all you're doing, that you used black magic to curse your sister, and I'll forgive you. I had to laugh, and I did. Father, have you lost your mind? Have you forgotten who forced this bracelet on me? You knew exactly what would happen if I wore it, but you still forced me to keep it on. Now I've only given you a taste of your own medicine. And suddenly I'm the malicious one? I think not. Like father, like daughter, I suppose. He was speechless for a moment, then became even more indignant. You're right. Since you know I'm your father, and that I gave you your life, I'm telling you to go take the blame for Serena. You will do as I say." It was impossible not to feel a pang of hurt. In my past life, I had loved and respected him with all my heart, only to be met with this. I finally asked the question that had haunted me for 2 lifetimes. "Father, Serena and I are both your daughters. Why would you only do this to me?" My father's expression flickered. He must have realized there was no point in hiding it anymore. He unleashed all his pent-up resentment. My mother was the legitimate daughter of a high-ranking official. My father was just a scholar who had failed his exams multiple times. It was my mother who begged her family to buy him a government position, which is how he got where he is today. But once he climbed the ranks, he grew tired of my mother's aristocratic ways. He began to hate that she had bought him his position, making him feel like he could never hold his head high among his peers. He started frequenting brothels and, in a scandalous move, tried to take a prostitute as his second official wife. Although he was stopped, the woman became pregnant at the same time as my mother, humiliating her completely. When I was born and my fortune was read as that of a queen, my father wasn't happy. He immediately had my half-sister's fortune told while she was still in the womb. The reading showed her life would be ordinary, with no great wealth or status. The contrast only fueled his anger. So he spent a fortune on a pair of jade bracelets to change their fates, to prove that a child without my mother's bloodline could be superior. After hearing his story, I was stunned for a long time. It was just another tired, old story about a thankless man. My father was still venting his frustrations, not seeing his own faults. He just kept blaming my mother and her family. I did nothing wrong. If you want to blame someone, blame your mother for giving birth to you. If she had just been more patient, I would have passed the exams on my own. Did I need her to buy me a position? It was completely unnecessary and left a permanent stain on my name. A sound came from behind the screen, and my mother stepped out. Tears still glistened on her cheeks. "Frederick, you were the one who couldn't pass the exams. You were jealous of your peers who became officials, so you got drunk and begged me to buy you a position. I knew you weren't really drunk, but I couldn't bear to see you so defeated, so I swallowed my pride and begged my family for help. You woke up the next day and pretended nothing happened, and now you claim it was my idea? How pathetic." My father's face flushed with anger and shame. He flicked his sleeves. "Nonsense. I would never make such a dishonorable request. Don't ruin my reputation. I don't have time for this. Alara, I'm giving you 2 days to turn yourself in. Otherwise, don't blame me for what happens." He stormed out, leaving my mother sobbing uncontrollably. I had my mother write up divorce papers and withdraw all of her family's support for my father. He really thought he had achieved everything on his own. He was a mediocre man his whole life. If it weren't for my mother advising him, pulling strings behind the scenes, he would be nothing. His peers were only polite to him because they feared my mother's family. How else could he have risen so high? Even the pardon medallion was something my mother earned by saving the previous emperor's life, yet he treated it as his own. As news of the divorce spread, my father lost his safety net. With Serena having just given birth to the snake baby and being labeled as a bad omen, no one dared to associate with my father for fear of being tainted. He was ostracized at court, and his dinner invitations were universally rejected. He couldn't understand why. When he finally managed to ask someone, the man just laughed in his face. "What do you think people were flattering you for all this time? It was because you married well. Now that you're divorced, who's going to prop you up anymore?" Hearing my servants act out the scene, I could just imagine the look on my father's face. He really thought he was somebody. After being falsely praised for so long, the fall must have hurt. Sure enough, it wasn't long before he showed up at my door again looking haggard. His hair was streaked with white, and he looked years older. He smiled and presented me with a gift. "Alara, my dear, I brought you some of the finest ginseng, and a rattle for my grandson. You used to love playing with these when you were little." He couldn't get near my mother, as her servants kept chasing him away. His only option was to come to me. I smoothed down my new clothes and asked leisurely, "It's been several days, and I still haven't turned myself in. What was that punishment you were planning, father?" He gave a weak laugh. "I was talking nonsense that day. Your sister made her own bed, she can lie in it." I looked away in disgust. I thought he had some small amount of affection for Serena, but it turned out she was just as disposable as I was. Suddenly, there was a thud from outside. I saw someone fall from the top of the wall. It was Serena. She stood up, wincing, and limped toward us. I almost didn't recognize her. Her foot was bent at an unnatural angle, and her body was covered in wounds. Her skin hung loosely from her frame, and her jaw was prominent. She actually looked older than my father. It looked like she had snuck out. The emperor had forbidden her from leaving her residence. She truly had no regard for royal authority. When the fifth prince realized she was missing, he would surely send soldiers to find her. Things were about to get interesting. Serena walked straight toward me, her face full of hate. Alara, what did you do with the bracelet? Why have I become like this? Did you steal my luck? Did you steal my youth? Why else would you be so beautiful? All of that was supposed to be mine. Give it back. She lunged at me, her hands clawing for my face, trying to tear my skin off. I kicked her away, and she fell to the ground in a heap. I looked at her coldly. Are you two really so clueless about the wonderful things you've done? And you have the nerve to come here and question me? Her eyes widened in disbelief. You knew? Then why did you accept it? You bitch. You were trying to hurt me from the start. You're so evil. Hearing those familiar words, I looked at my father and let out a scornful laugh. Truly a father-daughter pair, blaming others for their own mistakes with such righteous indignation. My father's eyes darted around nervously. He rushed forward and kicked Serena hard. What nonsense are you talking? You were the one who wasn't content with your fate and wanted to swap lives. This is all your own doing. Serena was already severely injured, and the kick made her cough up a mouthful of blood. She looked up, her expression wounded. Father, what are you saying? You were the one who told me about this plan. Shut up. My father, panicked, slapped her again. I will report your crimes to the emperor. You can spend the rest of your life atoning for your sins. Serena stared in disbelief, tears streaming down her face. Using black magic is a death sentence, father. You want me to die? Before my father could answer, a group of royal guards burst through the gates. The head eunuch stepped forward. His Majesty the Emperor summons you. Please come with me to the palace. My father and Serena were so frightened by the sight that they were speechless. There was no way I was going to let my father get to the emperor first and report the story of the bracelet, putting myself at a disadvantage. The emperor loathed black magic. Although the consorts at the party suspected something was wrong with the bracelet, none of them dared to anger him with such a matter. The emperor only knew about the snake baby. It was time for him to know the whole story. The two of them were consumed with guilt. In the main hall, they couldn't get their stories straight, their words contradicting each other. It was obvious something was wrong. To save himself, my father pushed all the blame onto Serena. But Serena was no pushover. She blurted out the entire truth. My father tried to deny everything, but the emperor had already located the Taoist priest who had read their fortunes that day. With a witness present, my father had nothing left to say and could only bow his head and beg for mercy. The emperor was furious, condemning them both for their willful crimes. He sentenced them to death, to be executed the next afternoon. My father and Serena were utterly devastated and were dragged away, struggling. They were thrown into the same cell, where they immediately started fighting. My father pulled rank. Who do you think gave you the good life you've had all these years? I got this bracelet for your future. I worried myself sick over you, and now you turn on me? You're a monster. If you have any conscience left, you'll go to the emperor and tell him the truth, so I can live out my old age in peace. Serena, who had been beaten so badly she was barely breathing, lay on the ground and looked at him sideways, spitting a mouthful of bloody saliva. Don't make me laugh. You think I'm a fool? If it weren't for you pushing me, would I have ended up like this, not even human anymore? You were the one who couldn't accept your fate. You had to have me win your battles for you. Well, now the truth is out. You're a failure. Without Alara's mother, you're nothing. That last line hit my father where it hurt. Shut your mouth, you ungrateful wretch. I'll kill you. More sounds of pain came from the cell. I stood outside the door, not wanting to listen to them tear each other apart any longer, and walked away. The next day at noon, the two of them were tied up and pushed onto the execution platform. The crowd below threw rotten vegetables and eggs at them, shouting insults. Having a father like that is the worst luck. He had 2 daughters, but he'd sacrifice one for the other. What a freak. Yeah, and I heard that daughter was born with the destiny of a queen. If he'd just been good to her, He would have been set for life. Why go to all that trouble? The crowd buzzed with discussion. High noon arrived. The order was given, and the executioner's blade fell. I wiped a tear from my eye, a sense of release washing over me. I climbed into my carriage and returned home. The nanny brought my son to me. I stroked his soft little face, and my mood finally lifted. Suddenly, a servant rushed in, panicking. "Your Highness, the second prince is coughing up blood. What do we do?" I hid the delight in my eyes and said calmly, "Don't worry. I will go see the emperor. There must be a way." Dozens of royal physicians took turns examining him, but they all just shook their heads. "The second prince's cough has settled deep in his lungs. There is no cure. We can only wait." I feigned grief, wiping away tears. "How can this be?" I sobbed. "The prince is so young, and his child is still so small." The emperor, still thinking about how his own mother was killed by black magic because of the bracelet incident, felt a bit of pity for me. He sighed. "You and your son have suffered. If my son truly passes, I will make your son a minor lord. He will live a life of wealth and peace." A few days later, the second prince finally succumbed and passed away. I officially took control of the entire estate. I knew from my past life that the second prince had a cough, but it wasn't serious, only flaring up in the fall and winter. So I had altered his prescription and secretly swapped out his medicine. Before long, he was coughing day and night. Until today, when he could no longer hold on. I looked out over the vast estate, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. I never wanted to be a queen. I never cared about being born with some great destiny. After living through 2 lives, all I want is to live freely and happily. From now on, I have money, power, a child, and security. That's more than enough. The end.